Well, good morning, Greg. I am so happy to have you here on the Craft and Calling podcast. Thank you so much for your time today, sir.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I'm excited for us to chat.
Me too. So we were introduced by a mutual dear friend of ours, Michelle Jacobek, and I'm so excited to be talking to you. I actually reached out to you, and you said you recently exited your home services business. So sounds like there's a bit of a story there, and would love to hear about your former business and kind of what that was, how you got into the trades, and then what you're doing today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's definitely exciting. It's a little weird. This is my first week where I'm like not doing any training or anything with the new
Yay.
and their crew. So it's going to be a little bit of a change getting a new routine after so long.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were in the concrete coatings industry, so we did decorative concrete, and I did it for 11 years,
Wow.
and so it's a little weird. It's a new challenge and a new change to take on some new things, but after so long, it was time. I think the season for that kind of ended, and it was
Mm,
time to move on to a new season of life and doing some new things. So
great. And
yeah.
you've got four little babies.
Four, yep, two boys and two girls. So we have 6, 5, 3, and 2.
Wow. Oh
It's
my gosh. So you had four under five at one point.
Yes.
Hot dog. My
So,
parents I'm one of six kids, and they had four under five. And it was just, God bless my mom. She was like, I would just sit on the floor. And that's what our days looked like, just sitting on the floor together. And I mean, it's so much work. And moms, I don't think, get enough credit.
no, I'll say there's been days where I was home all day with the kids, and it's a lot easier to go to work than to take care of kids. So
Mhm.
it's being a stay-at-home parent in general. If you're one of those, it's the hardest job you can do. Like we did physical labor, so I would rather do physical labor. It's that to me that's easier than taking care of at least four little kids.
Wow.
But it's fun. They keep us on our toes, and we never have a dull moment. We actually just watch. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Cheaper by the Dozen.
Yes.
Um, we've seen it several times, but we watched it for the first time with our kids the other day, and they're like, "That's kind of like our family." And we're like, "Yeah, we're not as big, but yeah, it gets pretty wild sometimes."
That's precious. I actually was just with my parents this weekend, and I told them, I was like, man, I really cannot imagine growing up with just me or even just one sibling. There's something about the clan. You feel like you're a part of something bigger,
Yeah,
when you are in multiple in multitude, and there's something about that I actually think is really important for children in their development to understand that it's not just about them.
yeah,
They are a part of a larger whole, and what they do matters, and that they're part of a team. A previous company that I worked for before I started my business, he was like, I only ever hire athletes because they understand teamwork
yeah.
and what that looks like. So with that kind of concept and theme of team, how has that led to and impacted the way that you led your team and even who you hired?
Yeah, so I think you just mentioned athlete background. I have a background of athletics. I played sports
Mm,
all growing up through high school, and I played college basketball for a little bit. And I think I think the big thing for me was seeing how I was as an athlete, but then also as I've grown and got more mature in leadership, there's parallels, but there's also things you have to change. And I think one of the things that I'm better at now is learning how to communicate with people in their own styles. So for a long time for me, it was just like I was a very like aggressive, go getter, get it done kind of person. And so I tried to communicate like that to other people, but not everyone's wired that way. And so
mm,
I think one of the big things that, we found in that business, and we have a couple other businesses, is meeting people where they are and how they communicate, and being able to, some people want to be, in your face, very blunt. Some people need it a little bit softer around the edges. So you have to learn your team and get to know them individually
mm,
when you can meet them where they're at and communicate how they need to be communicated to. And that doesn't mean, you can't add in your own flavor of how you do things, but you still have to have that nuance from person to person. I
right.
think as I've matured, I've been able to do that better. Not, I mean, just all across the board, whether that's with our team and our businesses, with our kids, or with other people we're involved with in different organizations. It's helped me as a leader and as a communicator. I think just being able to connect with people where they're at, not always expecting them to be where I'm at.
Yes, that's so good, Greg. When was there ever a real shift or almost like realization of this lesson in particular? Because that's, I mean, man, that's massive. And it's not just for the leader. It's also when you go home, you've got 4 kids, each of whom are very different, so when did this lesson kind of be learned by you?
I don't know if there was like I don't know if I had that exact moment where it was like the switch flip for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was probably gradual, especially like as we started having kids. Now, I was early into my business whenever we had our daughter. And so just kind of learning how like my wife and I need to communicate, like owning multiple businesses together. It's, finding ways to turn off when are we in business mode, when are we in husband-wife mode. And there's a lot of times that kind of crosses over. And so I think it was kind of gradual over time. I do think it probably got more apparent to me probably in the last 3 or 4 years, as we were getting involved with more stuff and, leading stuff in our church, leading stuff in our businesses. I sit on the board of an organization. So with those things, I think it kind of forced me to get better at it. If I wanted to be a better leader and be able to grow and help more people, grow our businesses, I had to become better and I had to do, communicate better and be a better leader. So I think it was more out of necessity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. I know that there are a few books out there that really people point to and say, hey, these are the ones that you need to read. I think one is oh gosh, what's it? How to Influence Other People.
Oh yeah. How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yes.
Carnegie.
Have you read that?
I've read it once and I've listened to it twice. It's a good book.
Wow. Okay. So how did that impact you as a leader?
I think that's a great question. I don't know if this is specifically from the book, but it's probably added to it.
Yeah.
I think a big thing for me is, when I think about connecting with people, it's truly caring about people. Like when it says how to win friends, it's I don't take that as like you're not manipulating people, but you're truly caring for people, and you want what's best for them. You care about them. You take an interest in them. And I think when you can do that with your team or with people or even with customers, and you truly care, take an interest in them, I think that goes a long way. And I think, especially in today's world, there's a lot less people who are truly caring and interested about people. Even with social media and everything, I feel people are a lot less connected than they used to be. So I think when you just really care about people and take an interest, that goes a long way in your organization or with your customers or even just with your friends.
Right. What did you have any SOPs or any kind of standard systems when it came to caring for customers and even caring for your team to ensure that they felt seen, to ensure that they felt elevated? Because really that customer care piece, there's so much, especially as AI is coming in and you don't know if you're going to call and reach a person or call and reach a bot. So what did you all have in place in terms of systems or even just principles that guided the fundamental manner in which you engaged with your clients and even internal team?
Yeah. So I'll say internally, I was not good at that. I'm still not great at it. I'm getting better at it. And I think I learned a lot from the coatings business that's helping us as we go into other things with our teams and our other businesses. I was good at the customer. I call it customer journey.
Yes.
That's one thing that was super important to me was, my big thing was I used to call it, we don't want satisfied customers. We want raving fans. There's a small baseball team called the Savannah Bananas. I don't know if you've ever seen any of their stuff.
No.
But they're like, it's a baseball team, but they make the whole thing about the fan experience. So It's interactive. It's not like a normal baseball game. Like a fan catches a ball, the player's out, like, and they do dances. It's really,
Wow.
show. It's very experiential, even though it's baseball. And the guy who owns it, his big thing is he calls it fans first.
Wow.
And for everything they do, like that's one of their core values. So every decision, is this fans first, and if it's not, then it's not an option for us. And
Oh,
that's
I love that.
with the raving fan thing was, everything we did, it needed to be good for the customer. Even if that cost us now or anything like that, long term, it was going to make sense and we'd win because of that. So everything we did was like, how do we do it, fan first and make that raving fan? So that was from you know, the whole process from the minute they saw our branding or got introduced to us to when they were going to our website or our social to the point of the first call or web form all the way through, not just when the job ended, but some of the fun things we did for them after the job that they weren't expecting to that, I don't think is anything crazy, but people just don't do that kind of stuff anymore. And it makes a huge difference.
Do you mind sharing what some of those things were that just really
Yeah.
made it
Yeah.
special?
And it was just little things, like after the job, a big thing is we would always send a handwritten card, which seems like a small thing, and it really is. But I feel like, 30, 40 years ago, that was pretty normal. Nowadays, people, they don't want to take the time to write a handwritten card. A lot of times they want to automate it or not do it at all kind of thing. And so something like that. And then another thing we did is we always sent a custom mat to our client. So we
Hmm.
sent them something that had our name or brand on it. We sent their name, their brand, which was very special to them because even though it was coming from us, it had their name on it. They could put it outside, So, little things like that go a long way. And we did that for every customer. And then we would sprinkle in other random things here and there. Like my wife's Italian. So we had a family move down from New York who had just sold their company. So when they came down, they were talking about kind of missing being there and all that. So my wife her family calls it pasta and gravy, which is just a red sauce. And so like we made them pasta and gravy and we took it to them when we went to do the job. And we would do random stuff like
Wow.
with different people. And, but it was, again, that going back to that showing an interest and caring about people. Um, and that just goes such a long way. And that started with, our interactions when they would call in or
Right.
email in, but that would carry through to even the estimates. Like when I was doing estimates, I would talk 5 minutes, 10 minutes about what we actually did and how we did it. And the next 20, 30 minutes was just talking to them and connecting. And
Mm.
I think that's important when you can go the extra mile, connect with people and communicate. And we added a lot of communication pieces into our back end too. So there was constant communication to the point of over communication, because that's a huge
Mm.
issue in the trades and services specifically is people feel like people just kind of show up or they don't show up and they don't know when people are coming. So we had lots of automated reminders or touch points where it didn't feel automated, but they had a lot of communication from us throughout the entire process.
I love it. I love that. And Greg, for, folks who are listening and they've got their own home service business, what kind of tool did you all use for automation on the back end? What tools did you use in terms of even just, we call it on the marketing side, the CRM,
Yep.
the customer relationship management system. What did you use in either one of those regards?
So we had a CRM. It was called House Call Pro. That's what we
Okay.
used a lot of. We also had some stuff in Go High Level.
Okay.
But there's other ones out there, Java. There's lots of ones you can get into depending on your industry that will kind of fit people better.
Okay.
We're messing around with one called Drip Jobs for a few clients now. And but I think the big thing is having that in place, finding one that works for you. And
Mm.
what we always say with one of our businesses that we actually service a lot of clients, and specifically in the trades, is there's so many systems out there that are really complicated, but you need to find one that works for you and that you're actually going to use. Because it can have
Right.
all the bells and whistles, but if you can't understand it and you can't utilize it, you're not going to deploy it.
You're not going to use it, right?
Yeah. So, but for us, we used House Call Pro with the coatings company, and that's where we had all the automated sequences and for
Mm.
follow up to one of the ones I loved was like, we had a week before reminder, a day before reminder. We had on the way, job started, job ended,
Wow.
automatic review requests, which was huge for us. We got so many reviews before we even got home from the job sites. We would get reviews, which
Wow.
is huge. And then just throughout the whole process, we would update them on different things like, hey, stuff's ordered, or excited to get the job done, or stuff comes up in the trades,
Right.
for something and someone has a leak in their home, or something happens with a closing. So you automate what you can, but for us, that customer, experienced customer journey is a huge piece of it. And so what we'd always say is there's a lot of value in the inefficiencies,
Mm.
especially with AI and where all that's going with chat bots and agents. I think there's going to be a lot of companies, not so much in the trades yet, but as robotics gets introduced to the trades, that's coming too. They're
Right.
going to try to automate everything they possibly can. But I think it's going to hurt people long term. It's going to be a short term gain, but it's going to hurt them long term. I really think that if you can automate the back end things and some of the monotonous things, it's going to help you. But anything that involves the customer experience or client facing, you have to keep a human touch to it because people are craving that, especially as more and more technology comes. People want that communication and that human touch to things.
Right. I completely agree. And with that, so you were talking about the CRM and having a system in place that's easy enough for you to understand so you actually deploy it. Making sure that, would you say, in terms of the customer journey, every single touch point that they have with you, which could start with an ad, it could start with a social media post, it could start with your website, but at every single touch point of the customer journey, all the way through to not even just leaving the job site, but the ask for a review, or maybe even dropping off the mat. Like, is that mat that you would give them, is that the final touch point of the customer journey, or what was kind of the completion of it in y'all's mind?
Yeah, normally the mat was one of the last things. Like now, of course, we would always try to get people to like follow us on social. We'll send them random emails for like tips and stuff on cleaning, um, those little things. But we would normally try to make that like the last big thing, and then the rest of it would just be more about like adding value. So
Okay.
not necessarily asking for things, but trying to add value. Um, and our big thing was like with the raving fan thing, by doing all those little things and giving people an experience where we'd have a lot of clients basically say like we were the best like home service or tradespeople they ever worked with. We communicated, we did what we said on budget, all these things, which you're obviously things will come up. You're not always going to have the best experience every time, but that's what you should shoot for. And so I think because we did that, a big thing with like the raving fan is it led to us being able to service people and get people who are excited and selling for us.
Right.
We spent a lot less on advertising and marketing than a lot of other people in our industry and just a lot of tradespeople in general, because our customers, our fans were promoting us, sharing our stuff, selling stuff for us. Like, we had tons of people that would just call us and say, "Hey, you did our neighbor, our friend, they couldn't say enough great things about you. We want to get it done. Just tell us when you can get it scheduled." And we would just take the measurements, give them the price, and they'd pay it. So it's the easiest sell you
Wow.
could. And so we had a lot of that. We had one guy, I think it was a year and a half ago, but in a span of like 9 to 12 months, like he sent us almost $60,000 worth of business.
Wow.
Like we would joke with him, like we need to put you on the payroll, and he would text us and like but that was his thing, is he
Wow.
contacted people, like we made him feel like he was a part of the family. And I think again, going back to that care and interest in people, when you can connect with people like that,
Yes.
it pays dividends for your business. And we always are looking at the cost to acquire a customer and how much we're spending on this form of marketing, all these things. But when you already have your ideal client and they're working with you, when you can take care of them in a way that they become an advocate or a raving fan, that they're going to grow your brand and your business for you. So that's like the cheapest form, the highest investment right there, I think.
Yes. And so this is a dated question, and I know that you exited that business, but do you recall what percentage of your customers were coming from referrals as kind of the origin source?
I don't know the exact number, but I know at one point it was close to half.
Wow.
Um,
That's massive.
that it may have gotten. I think it went down a little bit towards the end,
Okay.
um, just because as you're growing, you kind of get out in front of people. People see your stuff, see your trucks
Right.
moving around and all that, and it kind of takes on its own legs. But for a long time, referral was a huge part. I think towards the end, it may have been closer to like the 30 or 40,
Okay.
but still a good chunk of our business was from that, and,
Right.
and so it helped a lot.
There's, I believe it's in the book From Good to Great by Jim
Yeah.
Collins, where effectively they're talking about, rather than always reinventing the wheel, rather than always trying something new, go back and look historically at what has been the most successful elements that have scaled your business, grown your business, even just kept the steady momentum, and
Yeah.
just do more of that. And y'all, I think that this is a really, really good important point that you're making, Greg, and that all of us need to remember is that we need to be doing more of what already works rather than constantly trying to reinvent the wheel, especially when it comes to the world of AI. If we've got those touch points that have, frankly, we've grown our business on the back of sending homemade cookies at the end of every job, or sending a customized mat to our customers with their name or their brand embedded in the mat. And it's an actual mat that you would put in front of the door, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So those touch points, while it may at some point seem boring to us, we have to remember that this is a brand new customer who's never interacted with us before. They've never received a mat. And while it may become something that feels like it's just a part of our SOP, we're used to this. This is such a beautiful opportunity to thrill and delight a customer. And that last half of what constitutes a strong brand, which is, the first half is setting the expectation, following through, but then surprising them with a delightful outcome, which usually takes the form of some kind of gift at the end of the customer experience. And then that last touch point, man, they'll sell for you.
Yeah, they do. And, and I think it also goes back to what, I think it's kind of your values, because some people, I get, like, you're in business, we want to make money,
Yeah.
obviously, but like we would do things even where, sometimes in construction stuff comes up, stuff
Right.
that you didn't know kind of uncovers itself while you're working. Like a big thing for us was pretty much anything that was under, $200 to $300, we would just handle it. We would let the customer know, but we would just take care of it. Because again, just doing those little things, it normally wouldn't cost us that much because we'd have the materials or stuff to fix it. It was just a little bit extra time for us.
Right.
So, even doing, and I know that doesn't work for everyone, but for us, we just did that. And that also added to, those people would just be, we call them up, tell them there's an issue, and right away, you can just tell in their demeanor, like, oh, great, here's another construction thing. We're going to pay more money. And then when we told them, like, oh, this, and this, we're going to handle it. Like, oh, but how much is it going to cost? Like, no, we're going to handle it.
Wow.
Stuff like that. And it depends on what you do in your industry. Like we were doing more high ticket stuff, so we could eat $200-$300 from here to there. But even little things like that can go a long way. And that's not going to work for everyone, depending on your brand, or your industry. Obviously, we were more of a one-off service because what we did would last 15, 20 years. So, if they ever wanted to redo it, it'd be a long time, or they'd probably move to a different house, kind of
Right.
thing.
Right.
So if you have more of a reoccurring model where you're going to see people more often, I think these principles still apply. And I think we lose track of that sometimes, is like whether you're in a kind of a one-off service where you don't work with people a lot, like coatings or roofing or something like that, you kind of have like that leaky bucket where you bring leads in and you have a hole in the bucket and you got to keep filling it up. Or you have something that's more reoccurring where you're going to work with people a lot. You just need more buckets to fill at that point. These principles still apply when you take care of people, or you send like little handwritten notes. Like we would send every year, we send handwritten Christmas cards to every client that all of us sign.
Wow.
And those are just little things where you don't have to do it, but I think if you can just do that for people, or obviously with a lot of the softwares, you can collect when's their birthday, when are all these different things. If it's B2B, like when's their business anniversary or special milestones, and just notating that in there and putting it in the calendar, you can send stuff out to people, and it goes a long way. Because I think a big thing is whenever you can pretty much buy or do what you want for the most part, it's hard to shop for people. Like, oh, what can you get them? Like, they want something, they get it. But when you can do something that's more sentimental or has more of an emotional attachment, those are things that are hard to just buy, and people actually care about more. Like, you could go spend $500 on something, but if you send something special that's like a handwritten note or something that isn't just generic. Like when I would write handwritten notes out and we would sign them, I would think back to the person, like, oh, it's so nice meeting you and your little dog Pepper. Thank you for having us out and doing all those things. I'd put little touches in there that they knew that I was writing it to them. It wasn't just a generic one-off. And those things go a long way with people. And as you get more customers and scale out a little bit, that's harder to do. But if you can still maintain that, or at least sprinkle it in, so maybe you can't do it for every person, but if you can do it for half or 2/3, that still goes a long way. And I think there's enough value in it to have someone where that's part of their role in the company, is doing customer care in that way.
That was exactly what I was going to ask. All of these ideas, these touch points along the customer journey, and ultimately, at the conclusion of the relationship,
Mhm.
really delivering something that is surprising and just so exciting to them, so that they leave with an emotional high, so to say.
Yeah.
How did you all facilitate doing that? Was that someone's core job, or was that just part of their job? Like, how did that look on the back end?
Yeah. So my wife actually ran our back end for a long time, and then she actually brought some people from her team over to help with that too.
Nice.
So she actually did she would do all the handwritten cards and send them out to people. And then one of the girls on our team, Kelsey, she was in charge of ordering all the mats. So she would go through, get a custom mat for each customer of that month, and we'd send them all out at the same time.
Nice.
Like every 2.5 weeks, we would do that. And so yeah, we had specific people who had different roles and what to do. And it made it easier because you're not trying to just figure, like kind of you said, like we didn't have it standardized necessarily, but we knew who was doing what and who was in what role. And
Good.
because of that, it allows you to be consistent and not let things slip through the cracks.
Right.
um, which I'll say,
Good.
when I first got started was an issue for me because I would say like I'm like your typical tradesperson for the most part. I used to be like I kept everything in my head, like, oh, when do you have to be there? Like I just be there this time. How do you know? I just it's just in my head. I know it. And I did that for many years. That's how I operated. It was like we like to joke and say it was like shoestrings and duct tape. Like it was just like bandaged together, and it worked, and it was growing. And um, but at a certain point, stuff will fall apart. You'll mess up, and you can always still
Mm.
fall without systems. Systems are essential.
Greg, I'd actually like to have you on for a part two where we talk just about systems and preparation for exit. And even just how long, in terms of having those systems in place, really prepared for you to exit. Because the more I'm engaging with folks in the trades industry, even, I've got, a 100-year-old family brand tied to my name, which I'm so grateful for. And I plan to take it over from my dad. But a big gap has been systems. It's been
Mhm.
solely reliant on my dad. And there's no way for the company to ultimately have a ton of value when it's not set up apart from the owner. It's not owner operated, it's perhaps founder and then operated by your team. And so I'd love to, if you're open to it, I'd love to have you back on, because I'm sure, even just with what you just said, I'm sure listeners are like, okay, well, how do I do that?
Yeah.
How do I ensure that the business is not contingent to me and my involvement? So, would you be willing to come back and
Yeah.
have you on? I'd love that. I'd love to do part two with you,
Yeah.
because that is so important.
Yeah, we can definitely set that up and talk some more. And there's so much to it and so much nuance. And I think I like what you said about, even like with a 100-year-old brand, it can be dependent on the owner so much. And I
Yeah.
think that was a big thing for us is I'd say we had really good systems, um, probably the last 3 to 4 years before we,
Mm,
that's when we started really laying the groundwork and then building it out how we wanted it. And that made such a difference in how we could operate. And also, I'd say, not even from an operational side, but from, I'd say, just a lifestyle.
hmm.
There were so many hours that were taken off my plate. And then as my wife, Courtney, started putting systems in place, it took stuff off her plate. So
Right.
it's there's a book called Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. And that's
Mm,
essentially like what we were starting to learn to do is like when you can outsource different things of business and personal, you can buy back your time to do the things you want or to do the
right.
things you're good at to grow. And systems is part of that.
Mm,
And it kind of goes back to what you want. Some people want to grow a 10 million, a 50 million, $100 million company. Some people are cool with doing 500 to a million and have a simple life and
right.
the headache. So it depends on what you want and what, kind of what your values are.
Yeah.
But regardless if you want 500,000 or 50 million, systems go a long way because, we work with customers who are doing six figures but you'd be surprised how many people are doing 7, 8 figures who the back ends of their businesses are an absolute wreck. You just wouldn't expect it because of how much volume or how big their company
Mm,
is. But it's something that a lot of people struggle with regardless of the size of their company.
right. And you've said two things throughout this conversation that I just want to take a moment to pause on. You've talked about values twice, and then you just said it depends on what you want. Y'all, we have to know what we want. We have to know what our values are. Otherwise, we're going to be operating based on what other people are doing. We're going to be reactive to the demands of our customers, and we're not going to be living in alignment with our own predetermined ideal and our own predetermined goals for what we want our business to look like and what we want our life to look like. You know, at the very beginning of this conversation, Greg, we were talking about your 4 adorable children, you know, and you set up your business based on what you want your life to look like. And y'all, if we don't have clarity about what we want, both professionally and personally, our businesses so often are the things running our lives, and businesses predicated on reaction or doing just what our competitors are doing. And we've talked about AI a couple of times throughout this conversation. AI could be the thing that then drives the business. We're acting out of fear of being left behind, or we're acting reactionary to this new intelligence coming in, rather than being led from, I mean, y'all, we've got to be aware of our emotional intelligence as well as this artificial intelligence coming in. And that's where emotional intelligence of knowing our values, knowing what we want, allows for us to be the ones in the driver's seat, not AI, not our customers, not even our competitors. So, with that, Greg, thank you so, so much for your time today. I just have so appreciated the conversation with you.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for having me on. And I'd look forward to doing a part 2 if we want to explore that more. And I would just encourage everyone as we're wrapping up that a big thing for us the last few years is how do we design a business around our life and not a life around your business? That's something that I went through, I struggled with. And whether you have young kids or even just, your kids are gone and you have, your spouse at home or whatever it is, you have to live your life, and business takes up a good part of it when you're in business, but find something that fits around your life. Don't always make your life fit in the business. Otherwise, long term, it's going to be unsustainable, I think.
That's so good, Greg. And those words of wisdom extend beyond just the trades industry. It really is for every single entrepreneur out there. So thank you, my friend.
Thank you.